Oh. Hello. Okay. I think we're started the wrong screen there, but that's right. Welcome to the history chats this afternoon. We're going to get started in about 4 minutes now. So stick around. If you're joining us live, welcome. And if you're joining us later, watching the recording, feel free to skip ahead about 4 minutes to get to the history. And also thanks for watching. We appreciate you too. So just going through our checklist, making sure. Yeah, okay. Good. While we're waiting, let me tell you about some stuff. I always like to start with thanking our sponsors. Thanks to Yankee Bookstore for sponsoring History Speaks and History Chats this year. So both of our program series. And of course, thanks to all of our members for supporting us as well. If you're not a member of the Historical Society already and you're enjoying these programs and want to support local history, that would be a great way to start. Feel free to do that. If you want to become a member or maybe you want to sponsor next year's programming, feel free to get in touch with us. Our website, marathoncountyhistory.org, or give us a call, come on in. We're open Tuesday through Sunday. So yeah, thanks to all the people that make this happen. Also, while we're waiting, I'll tell you a little bit about some stuff that's coming up. Our next History Speaks program is going to be on October 23rd. So it's coming up in a couple weeks here. That'll be on Saturday at 2 p.m. And it's going to be on apples, botany, and cider. So something maybe a little different than sometimes we do, but we like to kind of get some local people, local experts on some topics that they're an expert on. So we're going to get Paul Wedeker to talk about that stuff. And just have a little time here, so I guess I can also let you know. I'm sure you're all wondering. Well, we're getting through September. We're done with our history speaks or history chats for this month. What's next month going to be? Well, we're going to go back to an old favorite theme, the people you should know. So we're going to be highlighting a couple different people. So we've got Win Brockmeyer, Ingwald, or maybe I.S. Horgan, as he's often known, and Louise Esther. And then we have a fourth one that I just don't have it quite lined up yet. But you'll have to stay tuned for that secret person. So, yeah. And so next week I'll be telling you all about Coach Win Brockmeyer and his remarkable coaching career here in Wausau. So, but lots of cool stuff coming up. And yeah. Okay, I got that through that quicker. Must be getting practiced at this. So we still have a couple minutes. Let's see. Oh, a couple of people joining us. Welcome. If you've not watched these before, or even if you have, just a reminder: I'm going to be handing this over to Gary and our guest for this program today. And they're going to be going through the history. If at any point you have any questions, comments, suggestions, you want to say hello, feel free to drop that in the comment or the chat section, depending on which platform you're watching on. We will be able to probably have a little time at the end for some question and answers and some discussion there. So we encourage you to do that at any point. Okay. So we're getting kind of close here. I think it's going to take a couple seconds here for us to move around anyway, so I'm going to hand this off. Here we go. Hello.
Hi.
Right. So Gary's going to take over and take it away. Just go down. Okay. You're on the right screen, so you should be good to go. Just click that.
So we're ready to go?
Yep.
We're ready to go. Great. As we all know, this month we were dedicated to markers in Marathon, monuments and markers in Marathon County. And we are continuing that today. And we have a special guest with us today. History Chats, the sort of an area where we can sit and chat about historical project. So that's what we're going to do today. Our marker today that we want to highlight, talk about history, and with every marker that we have talked about so far this month, there's always a story with it because we like to talk about the people, the stories. I mean, there's always more in-depth stories to what we see around us every day. And with the markers, there's also a large story that we want to tell. So today we have DuWayne Zamozow with us.
Hi, Gary.
Good afternoon, DuWayne. We welcome you, and we look forward to a little bit of a story about the Pomeranian Settlement Marker. A large part of our history in Marathon County deals with the Pomeranians coming here, and but of course I can go on and on, but I'm gonna let you sort of take over here and tell us a little bit about the Pomeranians, their marker, and their settlement here in Marathon County.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate being here. I always get excited when we get to talk about our heritage. And one of the first things I think about when I think of history, history is kind of defined as the study of past events, particularly in human affairs, and or the whole series of past events connected with someone or something. And the immigrant marker today is that something. Okay?
Yeah, we're good. So just it should be off the screen. So it should, if it's not working, just keep going right so it's off the screen.
Off
and
the
it'll be on
screen.
that one. You'll see the marker here. So then just click twice. Here you go.
Okay.
Okay.
Now so a little bit about the
Keep going.
map of. So here we are.
Here we are in the town of Berlin, and you're probably wondering why is Berlin being shown. We have to think back to the immigration. Wisconsin became a state in 1848, and it was just a few years later that all of a sudden land in Wisconsin was being opened up for sale, and we had some people back in Pomerania, Germany, and you're going to learn more about the Pomeranians as this program moves on. But there was a thrust of immigrants who wanted to leave Pomerania, and the reason they were leaving, they were actually being pushed out. Their freedom of religion was hampered. The Dukes of Pomerania wanted one religion in the entire state of Pomerania, and our ancestors had a certain conviction. They wanted to keep their religion they had, and were not happy with that. They were workers, employees of landlords. There was probably never a chance for them to have land of their own. So they just had ideas of maybe if I left this country, I'll have a brighter life for myself and to raise a family. They came to Wisconsin. That's a long story, but I'm going to move you to Wisconsin very quickly, and got to the center of the state. The railroads were selling land because the government gave the railroads the opportunity to purchase land, and then the railroads sold land to individuals. And they could buy land for $1.25 an acre. You say, well, that's ridiculous. Well, in those days, it really wasn't, because those people who immigrated spent their entire wealth that they had, because they were only employees and not landlords, just to make the immigration journey. The shipping, to go on the sail ship, which mine were, it was like 8 weeks, and it took all the income they had to get there. Even getting to the port of debarkation, it was costly to get there, and then they were held there for sometimes for weeks, and probably even a month or two before they could even get on a ship. Anyway, they had very little future staying in Pomerania. They liked the town of Berlin, basically because they recognized this is where there were lots of white pine trees. They were lumberjacks by trade from their country, because Pomerania lies right underneath the Baltic Sea. And they really liked what they saw here. They saw maple trees. They knew that where there's maple trees, there's fertile ground. Eventually, they wanted to be farmers, which was their initial background or their initial occupation. But they also had to be lumberjacks in order to make that happen. So we'll move on to the next slide. And I'm showing you a picture of Germany during the period of 1871 to 1819. And I'm showing you the different states of Prussia. Many of you have ancestors who listed Prussia as their point of origin, and then you have a hard time finding where in Prussia. Well, Prussia is the name of the whole country, and Pomerania to the top, right under the words Baltic Sea, as you're looking at the map, shows that Pomerania is right at the very top. And then there's West Prussia, Poznan, Silesia, and East Prussia. So to be specific, our homeland is Pomerania, and that's the topic of today's discussion. And again, they had to leave or to do the immigration. They had to move way over to the left to Hamburg, or Hamburg, and as we say it here in America. And there were two other ports, but that's basically where they had to go to and for their immigration. We'll go on. This happens to be in the town of Berlin, and this is the immigrant memorial that is the topic of today's discussion. But I'd really like to share with you a little bit why this is so important. Märchen County was the area of Plattdeutsch. That's the German word for Low German language, with nearly 1,000 to 1,500 families coming from Pomerania. The areas of settlement were in the towns of Marathon, Kassel, Maine, Berlin, Wien, Warsaw, Stettin, Rib Falls, and Hamburg, all solid Germans. But then the lesser areas were Elderon, Pike Lake, Harrison, Easton, and Norrie. German settlement in Marathon County began about 1855 in the midst of the town of Berlin and town of Maine. About this time, a Pomeranian named August Kaplin from Princeton, southern Wisconsin, wrote to his relatives in the Pommern. Pommern is a German word for Pomerania, telling them of the abundance of cheap land and urging them to come. Many came, settling first in the southern Wisconsin counties, working for wages to save until they had enough means to move north and buy land at $1.25 an acre, as I mentioned earlier. By 1858, 40 families were settled in the central towns, entering the Marathon County only on a trail. In 1858, a rough road was built. The nearest place to grind grain was in Plover, 60 miles south of this area. It took about 10 years to break 40 acres of land. In 1867, a large group of Pomeranians came. You wondering why? Well, August Kickbush, a storekeeper here in Wausau, then Big Bull Falls, had returned to Pomerania, collected a large number of persons from Reifenberg and Regenwalde, and who were peasants and day laborers, and conducted them to Wisconsin. He states his party consisted of 702 persons at one time, and that included children, and that took a large part of Marathon County for settlement. By 1867, there were 700 German voters in the county and 1,000 German families. Another major factor in bringing Germans to Marathon County was the Wisconsin Valley Railway, which was constructed in 1874. The company owned 200,000 acres in Marathon and Lincoln counties. They sent out pamphlets and maps throughout Wisconsin and Germany to induce immigrants to even sent a traveling agent to Germany. The settlement of Lincoln County was similar to Marathon County. There were 16 families from Regenwalde and Naugart in Merrill. And in 1890, the census showed 17.9% of the residents were German-born, an increase from 359 to 2,151 since 1980, showing really rapid growth. Okay? The Pommerscher Verein, Central Wisconsin, Pommerscher again is the German word for Pomeranians. Verein is V's are pronounced as an F in German. That is a gathering, a group in Central Wisconsin. So it's a gathering of German people. And we had the idea, I shouldn't say had, I had the idea of, after driving through the state of Wisconsin, you drive around, you see historical markers almost in many different places. Always intrigued me, so I would stop and read those. And one day I was thinking, why am I looking at everyone else's when we have something so rich right in our backyard? So why don't we do a marker? Because this Naugard, center of the town of Berlin, has so much history. So we also found out in doing our research that this trail that I mentioned earlier, going from Wausau to the town of Berlin, it went at an angle through the wooded area, blazed by markers and as you probably know and remember, our area was inhabited by Chippewa Indians. So the circuit riders, who were itinerary pastors, would call on people because they had no churches at the moment, and that all was coming in the future. So the circuit riders would use that path and come out and visit the immigrants that settled in the center of the town of Berlin, and I should say center of Marathon County and Lincoln County. Okay? This is a picture showing the port of debarkation in Germany called Bremerhaven. Our Pomeranians we lost our land, our homeland, at the end of World War II. And the land of Pomerania now lies in northern Poland, but it was Germany until the end of World War II. Because our ancestors were displaced, they had such a longing for their homeland, they decided it would be best to put up a memorial of our culture, the Pomeranians, and they placed it in Bremerhaven, which was the port of debarkation for the immigrants to leave from. And this monument is kind of unique. It shows the father looking onto the Atlantic Ocean like, this is going to be my new home. And his wife is looking back thinking, is this really the thing we should be doing? They would never ever see their families again. There was no way they had any money to do so. And they had a little girl and a little boy, so they were taking their family. Think of the courage it took for those people to do what they did. And the picture of that we're showing here shows our Pomeranian Verein on one of our roots tours, making a stop to commemorate these people. Okay, move on to the next. You're probably thinking, why are we looking at a log building? Well, the people needed some place to gather. So they built a log structure, and that became their first school. It became their first church. It became their first town hall. This builds a multi-purpose building serving anything public happening in the center of the town of Berlin. But what's significant on this picture is that Mutual of Wausau, the largest town mutual in the state of Wisconsin, located here in Wausau, was organized in that little building back in 1875. Who would have ever thought that, like, my great-grandfather was one of the 47 farmers who started that company. And here we are in 2021, and it's the largest company in the state. We're very proud of that. But anyway, that building, and the sign on the building says Schule, District Number 4. There were 7 schools in a 6-mile square of town of Berlin. But I have to back up. Town of Berlin was much larger at the time. Town of Hamburg became part of Berlin later, and so on and so forth. So, or separated from Berlin. And Berlin actually went up to the Michigan line. Marathon County was that long, and so the town of Berlin was a big area. Anyway, that was the origin of that building. I might want to mention that the immediate area around the intersection of Berlin Lane and Naugard Drive was named Naugard by early Pomeranian German settlers. Our immigrants were starting a new life in a new country and brought along some familiar names from their homeland. For example, Berlin, Hamburg, Stettin, and Naugard. Naugard was where the town hall was. Stettin was the capital of Pomerania. Many settlers here were from the Kreis, which is another word for county, of Naugard in their homeland. Naugard was located in the province of Pomerania, like I showed on the earlier map, and province of Pomerania was from 1815 to 1945, end of World War II. The name Pomerania comes from the Slavic Pomor, which means land of the sea. Pomerania was a free state of Prussia until it dissolved in 1945 following World War II. And with this change, East Pomerania now lies in northern Poland. Stettin is the present-day, Polish name is Szczecin, Poland, was the provincial capital. The spelling of Naugart, the German D has the sound of T, and thus Naugart here in America. Now in Poland, the name has changed to Nauagard, and it's a combination of two Slavic terms, Nowe meaning new, and Gard, which is Pomeranian for town or city. It is located about 37 miles northeast of Stettin and 34 miles south of the Baltic Sea. So, we'll move on to the next one. This is a close-up of part of the immigrant marker showing the lower part of the town of the county of Lincoln and the northern part of Marathon County. And you can see Naugart kind of in the center. You see the town of Berlin, which would be the center of the lower half, and Naugart is right in the middle. And you're looking up to the state of Wisconsin up to the left. That is the portion where Lincoln and Marathon County lie. Okay? If you ever want to take a drive out and see this memorial, we're asking you to take a look at Berlin Lane and Naugart Drive on your GPS, and you will be right at the spot where it's located. Again, the Naugart was one of the names brought from our homeland, and we'll go on to the next picture. This is the monument, and it's located on the southwest corner of the intersection of Berlin Lane and Naugart Drive. And it's right across the road from St. Paul's Evangelical Lutheran Church, and it's in the center of the town of Berlin. The marker is made up of red granite mined in a quarry in the neighboring town of Maine, just north of Waus a few miles, where several of our Pomeranian ancestors worked. The 6-foot-tall marker stands in the center of a platform of 161 12 by 12 inch tiles containing the names and information of our immigrant ancestors. On one side of the marker is a narrative that entitled Pomeranian Settlement, which I will talk to you about in a few minutes. The opposite side displays a map of the Kingdom of Prussia, which you're looking at right now, and identifies the area where a large group of immigrants originated. It also shows a map of parts of Marathon and Lincoln counties where many of the immigrants settled. And we have walkways that lead up to the marker, and they consist of 4x8 and 8x8 bricks, numbering 440, and the total marker, the gray ones that you're looking at of the immigrants, we have 601 actual immigrants whose families wanted to take part in this project. We have stories of each of the immigrants, almost all, those who were able to give them some. So if you're interested and you go to the marker and find your name on one of these, your surname, go into the library and you will find 4 volumes of family histories on these people. The erection of the monument itself took place in 2012, and of course Diggers Hotline was called and took care of all that. County Materials Corporation of Marathon poured the concrete base, the lower part, and that the color of the base, which is called Night Sky, is a matching color of the engraving on the light gray immigrant tiles. The red ruby granite monument was delivered on June 19th, and then there's a process of putting it up. Okay, let's take a look at the next slide. This is the Pomeranian settlement. As I mentioned, one side is the story, and the other side is the map, and it has our Pommerscher Verein logo. The logo itself shows a white pine tree in the corner, and a church below that, and a plow to the right, lower right, which our ancestors were farmers and lumberjacks. And then there's the Pomeranian Greif, which is a combination of lion and eagle, lion for its swiftness and eagle for its strength. Every state in Germany has a Greif, and they're all different, but that is the Pomeranian Greif right there. Okay? We'll read this. I don't know if you can read it on your screen at home, but what our Pomeranian settlement, what it says on the monument is this. In the 1850s, in the midst of Wisconsin's lumber boom, a large migration of Germans helped settle Marathon County. This group hailed from Pomerania, a former Prussian province in present-day northern Germany and Poland. Immigration continued for the next several decades, but the largest movement occurred in 1867. That year, Wausau merchant August Kickbush journeyed back home to convince his former neighbors of Wisconsin's riches. More than 700 immigrants followed him to Wisconsin. Pomeranians spoke Plattdeutsch, also known as Low German, and established several Lutheran churches. Members of today's Pommerscher Verein, which is the Pomeranian Society of Central Wisconsin, worked to preserve the language and traditions that helped shape the culture of this region. Okay, we'll go on to the next one. This is a sample of what an immigrant tile looks like. We have a code. You couldn't print the province on every tile, so we established a code making, like, for in this example, M stood for Mecklenburg, which is one of the states of Germany. Every tile has, first of all, has the male's first name and his surname, and then it tells where that person hailed from. Joachim Hendricks here came from Mecklenburg, so we didn't need the M after that because that's what it was. But he was born in 1830, and he settled in Hamburg here in Marathon County, M meaning Marathon County, and died in 1880. His wife was Sophia Gilo. She was from Imnach, which is also Mecklenburg, born in 1838, and of course lived with her husband and died in 1894. Going through all the tile markers, you can find out exactly where your immigrants hailed from, and the code shows you like P for Pomeranian, PS for Posen, and so on. Okay. Again, this shows the Kingdom of Prussia. This is the top part of the immigrant marker, showing the Kingdom of Prussia. You see how many states were in Prussia, and Pomerania, again, as I mentioned earlier, is up in the center, right under the words Baltic Sea, and it is a lighter red, not the polished part, because the lighter red is where most of our immigrants in in town of Berlin, Marathon, and Lincoln County hailed from, although we have Germans from all the other states in our state of Wisconsin as well. That's where most of ours came from those areas. So you can put that there. We'll look at the next one. Again, we're showing it's the Berlin Center in the background. It used to be the Berlin School, but is now the town of Berlin Center, Community Center, and across the road from this is the church, as I mentioned earlier. The monument is in the center. It is, like I mentioned, 6 feet tall, and the quarry was town of Maine. Many of our immigrants worked at that quarry, so it had meaning for us to put up a red granite marker versus the simple sign you see in some places. The walkways are of red brick as well, and they match the colors of the granite, and those bricks were purchased by people who were interested in this project and whose families are German as well, and they number over 600 and some. We had over 2,000 people partaking in this project. It was quite a big deal. This here shows the individual bricks. We had 4x8 bricks and 8x8 bricks. People could put on exactly what they wanted, and the families are not put in groups in the walkways. It's always interesting to look for yours. That creates interest for any memorial to find the one that is yours. And the two walks that are leading up to the marker from both sides are made of these commemorative bricks, as I just mentioned, and they're in an interesting pattern to include bricks for future use. The 4x8 bricks are red-gray Holland color, and while the 8x8s are a red Denmark color, all to enhance the ruby red granite and the gray immigrant tile platform. So we tried to coordinate the colors, and it all blends in with each other. And we have another picture here showing the Pomeranian settlement in Marathon County. We did apply to the state of Wisconsin for the marker, and the state of Wisconsin has their regulations on using the state markers, and our red granite one did not qualify for that. But because it was so meaningful to our people, decided to put that up, but still got this one. And we have directional signs on our major roads that have been erected in the county and state highways to guide visitors to the site. The State of Wisconsin Historical Society has recognized the project. The monument is now listed on the state register, and the standard historical marker sign is also placed on the site at the intersection of Naugart Drive and Berlin Lane in the town of Berlin, Marathon County. We're very proud to have that. And this is a picture of, I'm going to go back a little bit. This is in June of 2015. We were notified that we had won the award. This is it's only the second time that the award has been bestowed by the Wisconsin Historical Society. The only other winner is Big Top Chautauqua. We were honored when Dr. Brown consented to be our guest speaker and to present the award at our annual picnic in the bush on July 12th of 2015. Picnic in Bush is a local event that our Verein holds each year. We have a wooded area in our background. We do nature trails, and we have a folks march. Anybody who partakes in the folks march gets a medallion, and we have 19 stations of interest in the woods. So we are keeping our history alive with our children and future generations. Dr. Brown congratulated the PVCW for its excellence in the preservation of Pomeranian history and culture in central Wisconsin, and presented a very handsome plaque to, I was president at the time, which is now displayed in the town of Berlin Center. Dr. Brown commended the PVCW on its creation, leadership, service, scale, anticipated future, its functions, history, and credibility in creating the Irmgard Memorial Marker, its own official crest, having an active Pomeranian dance group, a choir, and emphasis on given the participation in international functions as well. And our group has taken several tours back to our homeland, which is Pomerania. And we have one more picture. This is a picture of my brother and I. I want to commend my brother Don. He was the person that designed the marker. And we had a marker committee comprised of myself, my brother Don, Cindy Bratz, Ted Gaden, Jim Gates, and Lyle Crone. And the marker itself, the layout and design was done by my brother Don on the right side. And it's showing, as I mentioned before, you now again see the Pomeranian Kingdom of Prussia, and then you see where Lincoln and Marathon County is below that, so it all coordinates together. The red granite itself was from the Anderson Brothers and Johnson division of the Michaels Corporation of Wausau, and it was purchased through the means of Ted Gaden, a very good friend of our club. The production of the monument was done at Cold Springs Granite in Cold Spring, Minnesota. And the tiles and the bricks, and we also had benches that the dance group purchased with the funding that we get for performing. And we have performed throughout the United States. We even performed in New York City. Mayor Bloomberg invited our group, and we were guests of Mayor Bloomberg. And 2 years later, we performed in Philadelphia. So our dance group has been very active, probably the most visible part of the Pomeranian Verein at this point. And the tiles and so on, they were produced by Wausau Tile here in the lower part of Wausau, Rothschilds. The landscaping was done by Land Art of Wausau, doing the beautiful floral displays and so on. And again, the monument location is on the town of Berlin property, which would be a permanent place, which is only allowed by state recognition to be on government land that will always be kept up and preserved. And that's kind of my story.
Well, thank you very much. There is one, we'll come back in a couple of minutes, but there is one chat.
Yeah.
Are there original buildings in the town of Berlin from which the immigrants arrived? So I was thinking of Naugart, the two older buildings would be, of course, the church and the and the school a la town
Yes.
hall. You can maybe speak to that, but if there are other I'm not sure about farms, but
If that person is available to make a little ride out to the town of Berlin, inside the Berlin Center shows the original town hall. Of course, it's gone now, but it was still there when I was a youngster. And the original church, again, was another little building, but then in 1904, the church was built. And the town hall, the Naugard School, ended up being the town hall after the original one had to be taken down because it had almost fallen down. And that Naugard School served as the town hall until the town of Berlin School was purchased, and the town of Berlin School was closed as part of the Wausau School District because it wasn't financially.
the consolidation of it that was
Yeah,
going on.
right. So,
But those go
Back-
back to early parts of the 1900s themselves, so
Yeah.
maybe not the original, but at least there are some early buildings that reflect early immigration
Yes.
into the town of Berlin, right there in Naugard.
even in my situation, my home was built, and my present home was built in 1881, but I've restored it back to that time. We have many brick homes that are built in the 1800s. Our area was completely farming, all farming for miles. And most of those buildings are all from that period in the late 1800s.
Right, so maybe nothing originally from the 1850s
No.
or so, but those were wooden buildings of log cabins, most likely.
Right.
Of the early, like you had mentioned earlier, the log cabins, and that has pretty much
If-
disappeared, but we still have great buildings left that certainly indicate the presence of early immigrants into the town of Berlin.
Right. And as you notice as you drive through the countryside, the beautiful two-story barns that our Pomeranian ancestors built are now crumbling and falling down. So,
But you told us the larger story. What about your family? What on day one when? So what's they came to the town? Where did they? Maybe just briefly where they came from
Well,
in Germany, in Pomerania.
mine actually came at the lower part of Pomeranian, and the borders changed. They're actually from Posen, but the borders changed through the years. You have to go back to the year of when they were there. They left, and again, like I mentioned, we're on the ocean 8 weeks because it was before there was a steamship. They went on a sail ship. Not many have that in their background. And great-grandfather wanted to buy land at Marcus Zand down by Ripon, that area, but it was too costly. It wasn't $1.25 there anymore because they came in 1856. So he worked as a lumberjack, came up to Merrill, the Newwood area, Grandfather Dam, and worked as a lumberjack. But he had met his sweetheart on the ship coming over here. So, and her family stayed here. My great-grandmother had 4 brothers and a sister. So her parents and the 6 children established in the town of Berlin. And they bought farms on the 4 sections of land, and that name was Fehlhaber. But then, because my grandfather couldn't afford land there, the 4 brothers pooled their money, and the way that happened was they went to the Wausau Hotel to buy goods, and they had to stay overnight because the trip was too far to travel, getting flour from Plover and so on. So they stayed overnight in the Wausau Hotel, and a neighbor heard that the Zamozow place, which is now the Zamozow Farm, was owned by a Mr. Miller at the time, that it was going up for sale, and they were going out to purchase that land in the morning. Well, this man got a hold of my great-grandfather at early in the morning, and by 4 o'clock, they left the hotel, and the farm was sold by 6, and that's how our farm became the Zamozow place. And my grandmother's 4 great-grandmother's 4 brothers pooled their money that they could buy that place.
Excellent, great story. There's another, a couple other. There's Grace is saying, thank you for your presentation. My ancestors was a part of this. So
Oh,
I think
nice.
that, we're touching a lot of
Yeah.
descendants of ancestors of Pomerania. So again, I don't have any more questions. Anything that you would like to conclude with? Otherwise, thank you very much,
I'm fine,
DuWayne. It
thanks.
was great, a great story and a great testament to the marker. But behind that marker, there's great stories, people stories, the land stories of Naugaard. So
I just like to encourage people to research your own heritage. That's the best part. No matter what settlement it is, that's what's important, and do it. Do it for your family. It becomes more important as time goes on. The little things you think are really not so important become big things as families move on. So do it for your children.
great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I'll turn it back to Ben, and he'll conclude our program today.
I'm just going to hit a button. So, yeah, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week at 12:30, as always, for some more History Chats.